Finally, an excuse to show off my Jar Jar's Girl tramp stamp tattoo that I've been keeping a secret for all these years. Nothing says sexual appeal and disappointment of all my ancestors like a poorly hidden and poorly done homage to one of the most notorious characters in Star Wars history. Sorry, Mom. So, even though I am inherently against planning, because I am baby, I do occasionally have to break the current of my usual self in favor of creation. And that creation is that I'm going to be doing a review of each of the Star Wars movies leading up until the release of Rise of Skywalker in December. So yeah, even though I seem like someone who doesn't have a plan, I do. They're going to be posted every other week, so next week I'll be doing something different for my channel, and then this week I'm doing episode 1. As you can predict, we're starting at the beginning. Without further ado, let's talk the inspiration for the 1,837 entries of Jar Jar fanfiction, The Phantom Menace. One of the things I feel like I should talk about with this movie is that I remember seeing it as a kid and thinking this was the pinnacle of technological advancement, and I always understood, sort of as I grew up, that George Lucas did overlook practical effects versus digital effects in the prequels especially, and I really see that now with this movie. There are some things that just, you can tell in some of the opening scenes in particular that the people in the scenes are the only real things that are there. Liam Neeson is running through the forest and you can tell there are fake trees that are getting knocked down. And I understand that probably saved money on a certain level, but it did sacrifice a certain quality of filmmaking. And I know that this has been talked to death, so I figured we should get that out of the way, first things first. I should also say that with this movie, with the prequels in general, I genuinely do enjoy aspects about them, and I will be talking about that as well. One of the things I will say, I know I just complained about the visual effects, is that some things, George Lucas's ambition does pay off. I would have rather seen so much more of this underwater world of the Gungans, Gunga I think it's called, on Naboo. That is so cool looking. Now mind you, this is before like the technology we have today. So like movies like Aquaman and probably the live action Little Mermaid movie when that comes out are definitely going to supersede the technology in this movie. But for the time, for 1999, it's impressive and it looks really good. The thing that I find as a catch-22 with this is that George Lucas, instead of divulging more time to this scene and to this whole world, he kind of just threw it there for a place for them to visit, and they don't really spend any real time or energy there, and it's probably because of a cost effect and everything. But I really, really like that visual and that scene and those little breathing apparatuses that they use. I would have loved to have seen more of this underwater world, and I'm a sucker for anything underwater, so that's probably why. But one of the things that I think is very apparent about this movie and the later movies is that instead of whole-assing one thing, George Lucas kind of half-asses a bunch of things, because he's just so eager and excited about all this technology, and that's awesome, but it's not quite devoted. And it's just like, how many things can we put in this movie that are just off the wall, technologically impressive for this day and age, that it starts to conflict with each other? One of my biggest problems with the prequels, but this movie in particular, since it is the one that kicks it all off, is that there is a lack of heart. There just isn't that same warmth between the characters that you kind of get in the original ones. Even when you have some stiffer characters in the original trilogy, there is like this common cause. You know what they're fighting for, their mission is direct, and their personal gain is obvious as well. I think that that's a really important part of it. And one of the issues with The Phantom Menace, for the first like 30 to 45 minutes, the only thing you're really given is that Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan are doing this because they're Jedi. And that's what we do as Jedi. We just do the right thing. And it's very political. It's against the Separatists, the Trade Federation and all that. And the Jedi are kind of acting as peacekeepers, which is intact and everything. And the character that we're supposed to initially become personally attached to is Jar Jar, and that's when he comes running through and he's like, oh, you saved my life and everything like that to Qui-Gon, and he's supposed to be like I think he was George Lucas's answer to how stiff these characters are for the beginning, and I'm no way blaming Liam Neeson and Ewan McGregor, who are exceptional actors and have been in several things that are amazing. Ewan McGregor, I will go on and on and on in later movies how amazing he is and how perfect he is as a choice for Obi-Wan. It's just in this one, he really isn't given the spotlight. He's given barely anything in this one. And I forgot how little he's in this movie. He's like the guy in the chair for 90% of this movie. And that's disappointing because Obi-Wan Kenobi is actually one of my favorite characters in Star Wars. But you don't really feel the connection between them like you did when, like you felt a connection immediately between Obi-Wan and Luke in the original trilogy. And you felt one even between Yoda and Luke when Yoda is like, no, not training you. So I guess since we're talking about the underwater world, we should talk about Jar Jar and why he doesn't work in this movie. I definitely don't hate him as much as everybody else. I don't like him at all, but I don't really feel like a burning hatred of him. I can kind of ignore him when I watch the movie. His humor doesn't work. And there's a reason for that. It's not even really Jar Jar or the actor or anything like that. It's the way that the characters were aligned together, and that's the fact of George Lucas's direction. It's like everyone in the movie is acknowledging that he's annoying, and that's not a good message to the audience. The audience, if they see the characters are annoyed by him, no one's gonna find that funny. And that's one of the reasons he doesn't work. And he's offered literally no depth. None of the characters in this movie are offered any depth. None of the new characters, should I add, with the exception of Padme. Padme Amidala is a worthy mother of Princess Leia, I will say. And she's awesome in this movie, and she's awesome in the next one too, to a point. But she's really, really great in this one. You definitely see her play the duality of Amidala versus Padme so well, and she just cares so much. And she is one of the few breaths of fresh air in this movie as far as being shown to have actual emotions. And even that, like in the beginning, it takes like a good 45 minutes to an hour to really get to see her interact and have feelings and get to see that other side of her. And that really gets brought out of young Anakin. And I'm gonna say something that's apparently controversial that a lot of people didn't agree with at the time of the movie's release, but how do you complain about this kid? I genuinely don't know. He is probably one of the best parts of the movie, if you think about it. I understand he's a child and some people think he's whiny and annoying, but he's a 10-year-old boy for one thing. And he actually gives a lot of heart and soul to this movie. Anakin coming from slavery is such a revolutionary concept, and how this character, this little boy, devolves eventually into Darth Vader could have been such an amazing feat. And I think the stuff done with his mother and his freedom from slavery, which is still an incredibly poignant topic today, is remarkable, and it could have been this awesome story in the end. Like this, had this been revisited properly later down the line in later movies, this would have been awesome. You see so much of like what we love about Luke later. Like Luke is whiny. Luke is so whiny in A New Hope and Empire Strikes Back, but really A New Hope. He's just complaining about everything. This little boy is so curious about everything in the galaxy, and his interactions with Padme are so cute. I don't love that they turn romantic later and how that becomes a thing, because it's a mess in the next movie, but that's another review. In this movie, it's so cute, and she cares so much for him, and she's very protective of him, and she's the only one who seems to see the problem in them waging all of their whole plan on this little boy and putting him in danger in a pod race. Like, she's the only one who's like, this is not good. This is not a good idea at all. And Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan are like, I find it to be absolute crap that his mother couldn't be rescued by the Jedi too, or that the Jedi aren't more heavily involved in this slavery thing that's happening. I know that they're peacekeepers, but like, do more, guys. That's one of the issues too with this, is that you don't really like the Jedi that much. And it's just very like, they're very dismissive of Anakin, of this little boy. And I'm just curious what they wanted Qui-Gon to do with him. If they were like, no, you can't train him. I don't wholly disagree with this adaptation of it, because think about it, like if the Jedi were perfect, they wouldn't fall. Like their whole organization would not fall in Revenge of the Sith. This movie starts so many problems for movies to come. The midichlorians, never mentioned ever again. Qui-Gon asks who Anakin's father is, for no reason. he just asks, and Shmi's all like, no, there's no father. So, is Anakin the Messiah? Is that what we're trying to allude to here? You know what would have made a lot more sense? If Shmi was literally just like, he died. If you really didn't want to like go through with like who Anakin's parentage is, just be like, he died. I saw it with my own eyes. There's no way he's crispy now. There's no way he's alive. But it was such a weird, who's his father? He's just Messiah. The rule of 2 for the Sith. I understand that maybe he just wanted to be like, okay, this is why it's Palpatine and Vader, but we all just thought that that's the way it was. Like, there's such an overcomplication in this movie, and that's actually one of the biggest problems with it, is that it's so unnecessarily trying to be complicated and make Star Wars something that it isn't. I'm so curious about the humor here. One moment, everyone is taking themselves way too seriously, and the next, we have fart jokes. And it's just a weird combination that doesn't mesh well together, really. You can kind of watch it from the perspective of someone who knows this is all really dumb and enjoy it, but you're also like, why? Pod racing is awesome. It's so freaking cool. No wonder they made a video game on it. Like, I know they spend a lot of time on Tatooine, but that is actually the most enjoyable part of this movie, save for the final act. And there's something really interesting about this movie being set in such a premature state of the threat at hand. Nobody knows that the Sith are active. Darth Maul's appearance is the very first indication of that. And Darth Maul is a seriously lethal villain. He is the coolest looking Star Wars villain there is, with the coolest looking lightsaber and the coolest fight scene, and there's just so much potential. He is this quiet and menacing villain. And even though Palpatine is secretly the Phantom Menace, which, by the way, Ian McDiarmid's performance in this is, as always, awesome, and he plays such a good sniveling, manipulative you-know-what. And he's in Padme's ear, kind of like, let me be the Chancellor. And that is how it goes. And Palpatine is just sort of moving he's being the puppeteer. And you see that throughout the whole movie. You see a little hologram, and you kind of know it's him. You only see the lower half of his face when he's being Darth Sidious. He actually doesn't physically appear in the movie until like an hour and 20 minutes in. And Darth Maul, you just see his face, but he doesn't talk. Whereas Palpatine does a lot of talking, and you don't really see his face. So it's an interesting combination between the two. Darth Maul, we know nothing about him, and he's awesome, and that's all you need. He's bad. That's it. It's Darth Sidious you want to learn more about, and that's who we're here to learn more about. It's disappointing that Darth Maul doesn't make it past this movie, you know what I mean, into the next movies, because there is a certain formula with these movies that I think is important not to break. And that is, the rule of 2, in a way. Even though I just said it was kind of dumb, but like, yes, in a way it's necessary. You have your big overarching villain that's kind of like the shadow, and that you're really the real venom of the movie, but the muscle is supposed to be the one that you're kind of on the forefront with and who you learn more about as it goes about. Instead, with these movies, we kind of see 3 different ones in Maul, Dooku, and Grievous, and we get no exploration on any of them. What did I say about half-assing a bunch of things and not whole-assing one thing? But Ian McDiarmid and his rise to power is one consistency about this movie and the next movies to come that is forever interesting. I actually really do grow to love the Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon interactions later in the movie. It's so late in the movie, though, that you're kind of unexpectedly given like one scene where it's touching and heartfelt, and you're like, okay, I could have done more for this so that we could have actually grown to really like them. But it's hard, based on one scene together, that when Qui-Gon unfortunately meets his fate, that you get the impression that he was kind of trying to spend the whole movie trading Obi-Wan off for Anakin. And I know that that's not how it actually goes. Like, I know that that's not the intention behind it all. I understand that Qui-Gon wanted to take him under his wing and he felt very sympathetic towards him. But Obi-Wan's just kind of in the corner is like, I'm still here. The final act of this movie is near perfection. It is the best part of the movie. We get pretty much a view of all aspects of battle. We get the battle on Naboo, like the ground battle between the Gungans and the droids. We get the space battle with Anakin, when we obviously get the obligatory lightsaber duel between Maul, Qui-Gon, and Obi-Wan. And it shows that the Gungans do in fact have blue balls. What is undeniably true about this movie is that it has the greatest lightsaber battle of the whole saga, which is a huge saving grace because it goes on for a really long time. You don't feel that though. I don't anyway. The choreography looks like a dance, like it's artistic. And yes, Ray Park is martial artist first, actor like third. I think he's a stuntman in between then. But he is totally gifted on his feet, and they get taken across all these different locations in this palace, which, side note, how big is this palace? There's such a good rise and fall of tension throughout. You're inching along slowly and you just know something bad is gonna happen. And visually, it's just so stunning. And the scenes where they're like going through like those laser walls are so tense, like you're sweating it out the whole time. And of course you're mixing in with the other battle sequences as well, so you're getting a little bit of a break from it. Qui-Gon's death is tragic, and you do feel that, but it kind of brings me back to saying, like, I really wish we'd gotten more of Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon so we could feel more of that, like, tense. I felt worse for, like, Anakin's sake, because here this guy was supposed to take him under his wing and care for him, and now it's like, oh, what's gonna happen to him? But that's quickly answered after Obi-Wan shows his true strength, which is awesome, because in a way it's kind of like the passing of the torch. Obi-Wan even uses Qui-Gon's lightsaber to finish off Maul. One of the most satisfying moments of this movie is actually the ending. Not only is Obi-Wan telling Anakin that he's going to train him, and we kind of see the layout for how the rest of this trilogy could possibly go and all the possibilities there that are a huge tie-in to the original trilogy, but we get Yoda and Mace Windu talking about the rule of Sith, and this is kind of the rule of two that they talk about, how there's always two, a master and apprentice, and they discuss which one was killed when Maul was sliced in half, master or apprentice, and it just slowly pans over to Ian McDiarmid, aka Palpatine, and he just has this dark shadow over him, and you're like, oh damn. I think that this movie could have been looked at in a higher regards if the rest of the trilogy just got better and better and it continued off of the groundwork that this one potentially laid, but a lot of George Lucas's original ideas here are obviously ignored later, and instead it just becomes a bed of inconsistency. But as a singular movie alone, I enjoyed this one. So what do you guys think? Do you like The Phantom Menace? What are your thoughts on it? And is it your least favorite Star Wars movie? May the Force be with you, and you have a great day.